I really can't believe that this is it. Inside this box is the last action figure that I need to complete my journey. For the last year, I've been on a quest to complete all the Star Wars vintage action figures. Today, that journey ends. So let's go over that journey and close a major chapter. So for the last time, let's go. Testing 1, 2, 3, testing 1, 2, 3. Sound okay? For a little over a year, I have been on a quest to collect Kenner Star Wars action figures that were made from 1977 to 1985. And all I need is one more figure to make that quest complete. So why did I start this? Welcome back to the journey. And if you're new, I never meant for this to become an official YouTube channel. I only wanted to do what I had always dreamed of, since I was a kid. And that was collecting all those action figures, every single one. It was actually the beginning of the pandemic, and I was living in downtown San Diego. And like a lot of people, I didn't know what that meant. And I didn't know how much my life was gonna change. It was just such a time of uncertainty. So I decided to move out of my apartment and what felt like a jail cell, and I moved out to the suburbs of San Diego because if everything was shut down, at least I wanted to live in a better area and a more open space. So I had put a lot of stuff in storage, so I got a lot of boxes out and a lot of totes out, and inside one box was my childhood Star Wars collection. When I saw that box, that was really the first sort of like instance where this whole idea of me collecting them all started. And I've always been a Star Wars fan. My first experience with Star Wars that I could remember was listening to the read-along book. I think that was probably in 1980 or so.
You will know it is time to turn the page when you hear R2-D2 beep like this.
So I decided that I wanted to collect the entire run. And I didn't even know what that entailed. So I Googled vintage Star Wars action figures. In my entire life, I was never a legit collector. Maybe I bought a few vintage action figures in college, but it was more for nostalgia, and it was never to try to collect like an entire set, never. So when I did go through those storage totes again and I found my collection, and when I was looking through all the websites, and I was even searching on YouTube for other collectors who had collected, the vintage Kenner Star Wars figures. And I didn't realize how many of those action figures there actually were. And you have to remember, the last time I paid attention to Star Wars action figures was probably in the mid-'80s, like 85, and I must have been around 9 years old. And I really forgot about the original action figures and what exactly came in all of them. And I really forgot about the original Power of the Force line. So I was looking at figures like Barada, a Man, Imperial Dignitary, and figures like Ramba, for the first time. And I must have spent months watching other people's YouTube channels, reading blogs on the internet. And I joined a few Facebook groups just so I can see how people collected and how much these action figures actually cost, and how people, these days went about getting them. And it was a little overwhelming, to be honest, because I did see people in some of the groups really ripping into people asking questions and that were, newbies. And, there was a big stigma about the new collectors that were coming in during the pandemic. And I did see a lot of posts, and I did see a lot of conversations over that. So I felt like an outsider looking in, and that almost deterred me from, doing this whole collection, because I didn't want to be seen as a poser, but at the same time, I really wanted to embrace the fact that I was a beginning collector. I didn't want people to take advantage of me on prices, which is why I did so much research. But what I didn't see, and still have never seen, on my countless search on, the Facebook, on YouTube, on any blog or anything like that. The thing I never saw was somebody documenting their entire journey of starting a vintage Star Wars collection from scratch. I never saw that. So I remember one night I was about to go to sleep and I really started thinking, could I do this? Can I do this? And really stick to a timeline. Like, could I really collect the entire collection? And especially, could I document an entire journey of trying to collect these and put it on video? That was what I really wanted to do. And that was when the name, the Padawan Collector, came into my head. And I laughed and I thought it was a joke. And then I went to sleep. But in the morning, I started thinking, well, if I'm gonna do this, really because I wanna just complete a childhood dream. But if I'm gonna film it, how am I gonna do that? I never really put up videos on YouTube, maybe like once in a great while, of my dog or, me doing something silly. I didn't know the first thing about doing a YouTube channel. And that's when I really kind of buckled down and I said, all right, if I'm gonna do this, then I have to make sure that I'm completely focused. And I have to know exactly what I'm getting into and exactly what are the figures that I need. Hey, what's up everybody? My name's Joey, and when I was a kid, my favorite movie was Star Wars. And my parents used to buy So really like the Virgo that I am, that's when I decided to make a spreadsheet and list exactly what figures that I wanted to collect. So I spent a couple weeks doing that. And I placed all the figures into a sheet by movie release and also the Power of the Force line. And it became a pre-checklist for me to make sure that I knew what I was getting into. In my research, I found out about variants.
What are you doing? I'm recording an episode.
No, go ahead, man. Proceed.
I can't when you're there. Plus, you're in the shot.
Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm Joey's Variant. I collect modern Star Wars. I decided that I wanted to include variants that I found interesting. Variants like the smiling and the non-smiling Lando, just because I loved that figure when I was a kid. And my mini grill, I don't know why it became a mini grill, the purple and blue smocked Ugnaughts. It just took me such a long time to get those. But I also knew that if I was gonna do this, that I needed to generally know how much all of this was gonna cost me. So that's when I priced out each figure generally at the current market price and got at least a general idea of how much they were going to cost so I could plan a monthly budget. And going into it, I knew that I wanted to collect everything, authentic and complete, all with their original accessories. So I couldn't buy modern reproduction figures or accessories. And I had seen those pop up in my research and I was wondering, is that okay? And really, as I was thinking about that, I was like, well, even if it is okay, I don't want reproduction accessories or reproduction figures. I want the real thing. I've never been against someone doing or collecting reproduction. It's just not what I want to collect in my personal collection, And that was before I even got into the politics about it, because there are people who really, really don't like reproduction, and there's people who are really, really for making reproduction accessories or figures, and calling them fan art. And that's cool, but my passion lies with getting the authentic collection and not, modern made items. So it was gonna be more expensive, of course, to do that. But yeah, that's what I wanted to do. And my initial number that I came up with was a little shocking, but I knew that if I was smart and if I planned my run and strategically timed out which action figures I bought and in which order, I could do this and not have it affect my other financial responsibilities in life. So really, I treated this like any other hobby that somebody would have picked up. Like if you played golf, or if you're part of a membership to a club, you figure out what the monthly dues are and the cost of equipment and upkeep, and you figure out a budget for that. So that's sort of exactly what I did. And because the number was so high, I decided to also look at my childhood action figures and figure out which one of those were complete and in good shape to bring over, into this collection. So for instance, I probably had about 20, maybe 25 figures, and of those, 5 made it in. For instance, I did have an IG-88 as a kid, but he was missing his arms, so I couldn't bring that into this collection. So I had to stay true to my rules, and they could be sort of beaters, but they had to be complete. And I wanted to collect figures that would display well, especially if I was going to show them on video, to the public. So with that, I decided to do the channel. And my background is in video and television. So I'm not like a regular person starting a YouTube channel, So it's different with somebody who doesn't know video or editing or writing or even lighting. When I have an idea in my head, the only thing that's stopping me is finishing it, right? I don't have to figure out, well, how do I film it? Well, how do I write it? How do I edit it? If I want to do special effects or graphics, how do I do that? How do I do the sound? I already know that. So really the only thing that was stopping me was my creativity and how much research did I want to do. But going into it, I had no idea how to make a YouTube video or what even having a YouTube channel meant. So if you watch my first episode, it's really just me trying to figure it all out and lay it down as sort of, what I was really attempting to do. And in doing this channel and these videos, it was a great creative outlet for me. And I started really having fun. And I think that's the most important aspect of this whole journey, is that it never felt like a job or burden. It was always like fresh and always fun. But I thought that the channel was just gonna be about me unboxing a figure and then checking it off a list. But what I didn't expect is that it would pique my curiosity to really put a fire into the passion that I thought I already had for these Star Wars figures, and my passion to learn more about them. And I'm a very curious person, to begin with. Like, I was the kid that was always turning over rocks to see all the bugs. I was the kid who bought a microscope so I can, look at a drop of pond water to see, the unseen life that you can see in that. And I've always been a researcher, and I think my curiosity kind of fuels my desire to do more, and kind of my overachiever mentality is that I've always been compelled to research. So when I started discovering all of these aspects of the toys and their history, I started to write about it, and I started including those aspects in my show. And I always put stuff in the show that I want to see or I want to know, especially the stuff that I never knew about, or the stuff that I learned when I was doing the research. And that was the most fun for me, because if I uncovered something new, I was like, wow, other people have to know about this. So as the show evolved into really an educational show about the vintage toys and the original, vintage trilogy movies. And then another thing happened that was really unexpected, is that I started making friends in the collecting community. And it really started when I joined the Facebook groups, but it continued as I kept on making the YouTube videos, and people actually started watching and following the journey. And I started coming on other people's shows, or I asked them if, they could contribute to my show, either on live streams, which I hardly ever do, or by recording segments and, sending them to me. Yeah, I've never been one to live stream, because I always think that I produce a better show when it's, written and edited. I will do a live stream every once in a blue moon, But the people's shows that I did go on and the people's shows that I started watching, I really started learning so much from these collectors and other YouTubers that I started, making a lot of friends, and, friends that I think and I hope that are for life. The people in this community, in this collecting community, are really some of the most, generous, genuine, fun-loving people that I really have, ever met. And it's cool because we bond together over this love, over a movie and the childhood figures, that brought us together. And meeting those like-minded people and people from all walks of life that have this in common, that's been one of the best surprises through this entire, video journey. This show has allowed me, to travel across the country to toy shops and to toy conventions and, meet people that I would never, in my wildest dreams, think I would ever be meeting. I went to my first toy convention because of the show, and before I had never been to a toy convention. I'd been to Comic-Con, right? But that's not really a toy convention. It's like pulp culture threw up inside a meeting space. And I went to my first Star Wars celebration because of this show. And let me tell you, if you haven't been to a Star Wars celebration, go at least once in your life, because it is like, if you're a Star Wars fan, it's like the pilgrimage into the center of the Star Wars universe. And I got to see people that I've always been a fan of, like Dave Filoni, huge fan of his. So I got to see him speak, and, meeting collectors in person and being able to call many of them friends, and that's the best part of this entire journey is really, building those relationships with, those people. And, being able to look into the comments of each video and read things from, the viewers and get to know the viewers through this channel. And that's been the ultimate honor for me, because, I could put out videos and then that's it. And I try and answer every comment, because behind every comment is a human being who loves these movies and figures as much as I do. And, they're expressing their thoughts on these videos and what I think. And that's an honor and a privilege for me to read and answer those that they have, no matter if they are agreeing with what I say, disagreeing, or in a few cases, giving me extra information that I never knew about. That has been, for lack of a better term, rad. And I really look for the people who have always left comments, what they have to say about the topics that I do. And plus, when I recognize that it's a new person that's writing a comment, I love engaging with people, and the medium of, YouTube lets me do that. It helps me grow, and it helps me understand, what other collectors and what other fans of the Star Wars universe, think about certain topics. And, this is a hobby for me, and I like getting that knowledge and sharing that knowledge. So I went week after week, getting new figures, learning more, making more friends, changing up the studio, getting the most fantastic action figure case of all time. And I always try to improve the show, both for, the audience's enjoyment, but also to push myself creatively and get better at telling a story, because it both satisfies me and hopefully the audience at the same time, because I never want this to get boring for me. And once it starts feeling cookie cutter, once it starts feeling like I'm just pressing play and I'm going through the motions, I told myself, once it stops being fun, once it starts feeling, tedious and repetitive and like I have nothing more to say, that's when it ends. Luckily, this has been the most fresh, the most fun, the most creative outlet that I've actually needed for a long time. So with that and the collecting community, this is pretty much the journey that I've been on for this past year. And really, it started off with me just opening a box of my childhood toys to figuring out how I was going to do this to how I would present it to the world. And then finally, blindly doing it until, here we are. And it's the last leg of the journey. But I'm proud of the fact that I'm the first person to, really put this on video and go on this entire journey and show the public what it really takes and take them through a journey of, showing them how much one person's passion can be for, a nostalgic toy line. But the last figure is inside one more box. So I have one more box to open.
If you're new to the channel, check out the welcome video, or just check out the next episode. And please subscribe if you want to follow the journey. And remember, there is no shame in being a Padawan.